Hello, folks. Brandon Chapman with you today. It's another TheoTrade video for July 22nd. It's Monday. And boy, what a weekend. Probably one of the bigger announcements I've ever experienced in my entire life. I'm about to turn 50 this year. And of course, what I'm talking about is the news of Biden dropping out of the race on Sunday via Twitter. Boy, we think about the ostracization of Twitter and all this stuff. And yet the vehicle we use to announce the withdrawal of our Democratic president and candidate for the upcoming election, it's crazy. It's like Atlas Shrugged, their current president dropping out via a tweet. As far as I know, no physical appearance to just discuss it and describe his motivations, etc. He's out in the market. It's like Atlas and Atlas Shrugged, the Atlas of the central political juggernaut of the U.S. government, basically shrugging and walking away, and the market rallies today. And it just kind of shows, I mean, my goodness, I mean, what does it take for the market to decline? What degree of uncertainty is there? I mean, again, we've got months left of his presidency until whoever the next president takes over in January. We haven't seen any sort of message from him as far as delivering a speech or something. Even if someone was, again, ill or whatever, it's hard to know. I mean, everything that's going on. And yet all of that uncertainty, all of that discussion, Atlas Shrugs in terms of the political Atlas Shrugs globally, the U.S. president, and again, the market has its best day since June. It's crazy to think about that that's a possibility, but that's exactly what happened today. And if you look at what led the way, it was technology. Again, 2.37% for XLK. You look at NVIDIA, the most important stock in the world. We thought the U.S. president was the most important person in the world. My goodness, it looks like the market doesn't think so today, but NVIDIA, the most important stock in the world, up 4.76%, helping to lead shares higher. But remember, we have key data coming up this week. For example, Google, one of the biggest companies in the world. You think these stocks would matter, right? Well, Google announces tomorrow after the market close. Tesla, again, Twitter owned by Elon Musk. Tesla, again, he's the major shareholder, the CEO, the founder of the company, etc. You can see there's some stuff going on here, but nothing big. Consolidating, but again, tomorrow earnings. I'm on my fib retracement after the market close. Visa, again, the central platform in terms of spending. We're going to get the state of the state on spending and consumers tomorrow. Again, announcing after the market close. So we've got a rather significant amount of market cap announcing. These are very key stocks in every sector that they represent, and we'll see how they perform. Is this going to be another like Google, for example? Maybe it slips on its earnings and the market just walks and does nothing. Atlas shrugs and all of a sudden the market rallies. Google shrugs and the market rallies. Visa shrugs and the market rallies. Tesla shrugs and the market rallies. Is this what we're talking about? Is this a possibility? Probably not, right? I mean, maybe these companies are more important at this stage than who the president is. And we're going to find out here tomorrow after the close as you look at aftermarket. But you look at 26 July, 4 days left. The expected move on Google is what, about 6-7%? And that's a big move. If Google cannot move the market tomorrow and it's moved 6 or 7%, if it drops and the market rallies, what does that tell us about the state of the market and the state of Google and its impact on the market? What if Tesla does the same thing as we look at Tesla? Tesla has its expected move of 23.90 for this week. Again, 23.90, that's almost 10%. I mean, these are significant representations in the S&P 500. And finally, Visa. Visa's expected move is 9.40. It's a $267 stock. Not as much movement there, 3-4%. But again, what if Visa moves 3-4%? And Google and Tesla, this does create potential for volatility this week. And yet, when we think about volatility, let's look at the VIX index. The VIX index was sold today. We're down to about 15. Well, if we look at the SPX, let's look at the expected move for this week. 1, 2, 3, let's go 3 days here. 55 points. Going into the end of the 26 July, going to the end of the week, we're looking at $65 expected move for this week. So again, we have lots of potential for movement for volatility. And as we look at the VIX, again, the VIX may rally from this point. Last week, yes, the S&P declined almost, if we go peak to trough here from high to low, from high click, low click. I gotta expand this out. Drop this down about 3.25%. I was expecting a 5 to 10% correction. We're not quite there yet. We never got the selling. We never got the big move in the VIX. The reality is, again, we never got something that said, hey, everyone that wants to sell has sold. What we're seeing is kind of reflexivity today, maybe a bit of relief. Maybe now we know who the president's going to be. Maybe that's what we need versus a specific person. Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe people are already factoring in a Trump presidency. Maybe investors are saying it doesn't matter, right? The fact of the matter is that at the end of the day, we're better off without Atlas in general. And I'm not talking about Atlas in the classical sense of Ayn Rand. We're talking about the titans of industry. We're talking about who? The president. Maybe it doesn't really matter. Maybe the fact that we have gridlock, maybe the fact we're not extending policy that may impact things, taxation, etc. Maybe this is telling us, hey, it doesn't matter. We don't need you. Okay? We can do just fine without you. I don't know what the overarching message is, but it's curious that the market would have its best day since early June. And all of a sudden, again, over the weekend, we had a very major announcement. And I think people kind of underplayed this. I think people have kind of swept the presidency under the rug. We've basically diminished the value of the president at this point in time. And it's kind of crazy to think about. We're diminishing the value of the commander-in-chief of the United States of America. Oh, it's fine. We'll just move on. Next. Pretty crazy. But the VIX today was down on that news. The market rallied on that news. Let's take a look at a few stocks around there. So for those that are getting a hangover from this, maybe you need something to help bring you down here, to help you to kind of just come down off this thing and just to try to, what am I trying to say here? Trying to dumb the senses or dull the senses. Cannabis companies, and it's been one of those things over the last little over a week. There have been a number of unusual option activity trades in the cannabis space. And Aurora Cannabis, we've seen it. I've seen it with, for example, CRON. I've seen it with Tilray. I've seen it with MSOS. Today, it was Aurora Cannabis's turn and SNDL. But ACB, we're getting a nice bounce off support, good seed wave, bounce off support, 161.8, it's about 765, maybe a chance of getting back to 10. And normally these stocks have relatively high short interest. So if the market's going to rally, do we get a short squeeze out of these stocks? We got it, for example, in March into April. We got it back here, for example. A big move here, again, another short squeeze. Do we start to see a squeeze in cannabis companies? And again, ACB today, the trade on ACB was for this week, 26th of June. Let me change my layout here, but it's right there at the 650 strike, mostly bought. Again, we've got a gamma level. We started to break 650. This thing could really push fast, like we've seen in the past where we've had these kind of short squeezes. So again, watch cannabis stocks. SNDL is another one up about 10% today. Earnings coming up as well. But on SNDL, it was the, again, the 26th July expiration here at the 250 strike. Again, we finished just below it. We start to break. That starts to go in the money. We get the gamma squeeze that's parlaying into a short squeeze. We could see a big move here up to like $2.80, maybe $3 in SNDL. Today, we walked through a spread trade on MSOS, thinking if a number of these stocks break out, MSOS should move sympathetically. Again, just kind of an out of the money, buy the 8, sell the 10, skews in your favor, that sort of thing. So there's ways to play this. And again, it's just based on the idea that we get a short squeeze in cannabis stocks, which we've had a number of times in the last year. And generally, it's the option activity that leads to a gamma squeeze that then leads to a short squeeze, and you get these big moves. So you get the early indication from the option market. It's exactly what we got today. All the news, from technology shares, NVIDIA, for example, et cetera. I mean, the weakness we've seen recently, NASDAQ has its earnings coming up this week on the 25th before the market opens. And it begs the question again, are we going to start to see maybe diminished value in NASDAQ? Maybe do we start to see the outlook cool down, less trading, etc.? The reason why I'm skewing bearish here is because of the trade today. This was an August expiration on NASDAQ. It was a downside put spread, buying the 60s, selling the 55s, 25 days out. The 55s are down here. So that's a significant downside move. We've seen a couple of these a little bit less intense than we're talking about here, but hey, there's been some selling. We're back up against resistance. This may not be a time where you start to say, hey, look, maybe you take the downside or wait for the earnings and then play the downside from there if it materializes. But that was a pretty decent bearish trade that's put on today in the market in a few prints. Anyway, also on listing, you think about, okay, well, we're doing cannabis. We're not trading, or we dulled the senses. I mean, what about Costco? I mean, do you get the munchies for bagged chicken? I mean, I hear that Don Kaufman, co-founder of TheoTrade, is a big Costco rotisserie chicken fan. But since they went to the bag, he's been, it's not happened. Does not like the bag. I guess some areas still use the box. But the point is, Costco testing an area of support. We had some bit of selling on the 11th, on the Slurpee Day, for example. But again, are we shaping up here to see a bounce, possibly to 875, maybe back to 890, 895, 900? Well, today's trade in Costco, it was for this week, a 26 July expiration. Let's kind of go scroll down here to kind of see it out here. Way decently out of the money at 875. I mean, look here on the chart, 875 is right about there. You could certainly get there in a couple of days, but it's got to move. And we walked through a spread trade earlier today in my session on Costco to the upside, just looking for a bit of a near-term bounce. Not even a retest of 900, just getting up to maybe 865, 870 in this area. We're certainly shaping up as we're consolidating. You could certainly wait for a break through the highs, for example, or you get in early anticipating that the volume is preceding the price. The volume in the options market then is going to help spur on what potential move in the stock price. And again, maybe a run to 870, 890. But again, a bullish spread here looking at just out of the money would be reasonable based on the trade we're seeing on Costco today, but it's looking at a near-term bounce in price. News also coming from the NBA. Of course, it's Summer League going on right now. My household, we love watching. I keep doing dollar sign. Don't know why. My household, we love the NBA. We don't like the politics of the NBA, but we like watching the NBA, especially Utah Jazz. It's really our only professional team that really matters. We may be getting some hockey. We already have a professional soccer team, but I'm in the big two: football, basketball. We had a nice breakout here in Warner Brothers Discovery. Well, but news coming out today, and the stock reacted slightly negatively to that news that they're going to jump in the game and try to compete with Amazon in a media rights purchase, right, package to match Amazon. You know, boy, I love watching basketball. Coach basketball. I coach kids AAU basketball. I've coached hundreds of games in the last number of years. But man, the NBA product, I'm not sure what it is, what it used to be, right? I'm not sure you're generating the kind of revenue. These companies seem to be willing to step in and pay big bucks for it. And of course, you know, the caps going up, et cetera. Players getting paid astronomical sums of money. And again, it's unionized. All these contracts are set. But again, Warner Brothers stepping to the mix, seeing some selling activity today. And as we look at WBD, this week's expiration, so put option buying at the $8 strike price. So again, we start to run to 8, we start to break 8, you start to get the gamma squeeze, pushing it back to 7, earnings coming up as well. But this is one to watch as, again, some bearish trade entering the fray today. I mean, you could go out 25 days and buy a downside put spread, buy the 850, sell the 750. You're into it about 60 cents on a $1 spread. It's not great, right? It's 60 cents on 1 point spread. The skew is really kind of interesting here. The volatility's all over the map. But again, you can maybe buy an 8, sell a 7. You know, again, limited risk. Bid-ask spread's a little on the wider side here. So again, you might be get in between, do a 1 point wide spread, or you just buy a put outright. Give yourself a bit more time, like 60 days. You could buy a 750 strike. And boy, if we really crash here, get back to 7, 650, that could really pay dividends with a 60 days expiration. It's going to retain its time value a little bit if the price moves its direction. But anyway, Warner Brothers, interesting today. Lastly, I'm going to wrap up with PSX. This is one it's been kind of building. We saw, I talked about some option activity last week on VLO. If you look at forward/RB, this is gasoline prices. And gasoline prices themselves don't really matter a lot. More importantly, it's the spread between refined products and oil. Oil prices have certainly been rising, and it's an area I've been bullish on for a while. But is there the possibility we might start to see some degree of strength in gasoline against oil? So I'm going to load the study he said here for pairs ratio. And what this does, it constructs a ratio of oil as the denominator and gasoline as the numerator. And notice what's taken off here, right? We're starting to see a little bit of a breakout in gasoline against oil. What that means is the margins on gasoline is improving against oil because companies like PSX, they're purchasers of oil and they refine the product, etc. We looked at MPC. Again, these are an area to watch as we may start to see some degree of movement. And today's trade on PSX is the August expiration. So here to August, scroll down, out of the money at 145. So AUG 145 is being bought today, gives us a target, gives us a time frame. We start to look at the retracements from the high to low in here. We typically look for about a 1/3 to 2/3 retracement. 38% gets you back to 148. The trade, the call option is at 145. So again, we're looking for a bounce off support, pushing towards that 150 mark or area. And again, in the near term, you could try to look for a little bit more follow through. Earnings are coming up, and that creates a degree of risk. But again, 145, 150, maybe a spread that you might consider here, or you wait for the earnings and look for them to beat earnings, beat revenue, raise guidance, and the stock price go up. And then you play the follow-through trend that may have a chance of carrying us back to 175 if the news is more positive. But again, the breakout in the last week in refining margins, in essence, between gasoline and oil is interesting. And as we look at oil forward/CL, I mean, oil is in a position where we could see a very significant move. We've seen selling the last couple of days here. But as we look at the term structure of oil, boy, this is a messy, it's not working. Oh, now it's just frozen. Great. Guess we'll wrap there, folks. Broke the platform. Now we're okay. But oil's experienced a little bit of weakness. If we see further weakness or again, just strength in refined products, that's an area that'll help PSX, MPC, Valero, VLO. Those kind of stocks really start to move. Anyway, we'll kind of wrap it up with that. We'll catch you back next week, and we'll see what the market holds. Again, big data. We got advanced GDP this week as well. We've got key earnings from Google, Visa, and Tesla. And again, we've got the continuing saga of who wants to be the next president of the United States and again, all the baggage that goes along with that. And we'll catch you back next week. Thank you.